movies, the older one and the remake, I was telling Christine, they seem like they're families from different parts of the world that just have their own story, and that's the only connection, is it just happens to be like, oh, part of our family lives in Mexico, and that's our story. And because and that to me is like the connection, exactly. It just happens that they're related, but that's it. And I loved that because it has a little bit of a thread, and there's a connection there. And I also liked the fact that my other life is I have an art gallery that sells film art, and so I know a lot about movie posters because that's one of the things that we do is sell movie poster art. And I actually like the fact that you used the same design in the poster. Was that something that you guys did? Or the We Are What We Are, blah, 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 blah.
Right, yeah. That was the distributor, the sort of typography part of it. But the poster, the shot of the two girls there and him sitting behind him was something that we actually did before we shot the movie. It was kind of cool. We did, once we had a cast, for foreign sales reasons, they want to be able to go and sell a poster for the movie, So they're already trying to think
I know.
So I was really inspired by the Tale of Two Sisters poster, that Korean poster. I just love that poster, and I had that on my wall growing up, and I felt like it's kind of apropos to do this sort of American version of that. So we did our sort of cold blue Gothic version of that.
It definitely has a Gothic vibe, the poster as well.
Yeah, good. And then the rest is up to them. And that was actually the original version. The foreign sales guys, they did like this sort of dripping bloody letter, font that I wasn't a big fan of, but kind of get it. They have to be able to sell it to.
I don't remember that.
Every country on earth. It's just a very slightly different version of the one that's out now. So they took that design from the original and really.
So you had the choice. You made the decision about the poster.
Yeah.
Interesting.
We went out and shot that. Well, but that was just the first time we got all the actors together in a room. Was bringing them in for that, and it's cool because they're all trying to kind of find what their poses are going to be and their looks and their moods. It was a good experience, I think, for them to start to be able to sink into the character and start to wear the clothes in a way. So.
It seems like much more of a Gothic horror movie than it is about cannibals. And for the purposes of the fact that people will not have seen the movie when I put this out, I don't want to talk too much about the way that it gets constructed and builds towards the end. But what I loved about it, probably most, I just loved how it built. And I'm also French, so I liked that aesthetic that was kind of a slow burn. Did you, when you guys were constructing it, did you think about the consistency of the build? Did you have to keep going back, revisiting that to make sure that it was working, or did it feel like it was like the script worked perfectly in that way?
I think in everything, the rewrite is the real writing process, and so to me the biggest part is if you can get that first, whatever it is, 100 pages, the vomit pass, if you can get that first, get all your ideas, no matter what shape they're in, no matter how bad they are, get them all onto the page so that then you can really sit and sculpt it. So it was pretty close what Nick had come out. It was pretty close the first go round. It was tweaking then, and then you make connections and you find, that's the process that I like, is once you sort of see where everyone's going to land, you can sort of reverse engineer where they should start. And so there was a little bit there, but that was always the intent, was to do it that way, was to really. What I loved about the original was that concept of cannibalism is so heavy and so dark and isn't seen that often. It's not like vampires or zombies or whatever. So you could sort of let it dangle there and let the audience wonder what kind it's going to be. You know what I mean? It wasn't. We set it to kind of say we're not. The question isn't what are they? Oh, they're cannibals. It was how are they cannibals? They're two beautiful girls, and and
it's not even really about it at all. It's really about religion and about how that kind of oppression of kids, and when they get to a point where they can't, because I feel like the catalyst is the mom dying, and then they all start asking questions. Do we really want to be doing this? And I was raised Catholic and went to a Catholic boarding school, so I completely bought into the whole thing of halfway through the movie being like, I don't want to do this. This isn't working for me. And I loved that, and also how I'm fascinated by how good your actors are. I mean, that you really is that to you the most important? I mean, what kind of percentage would you put that in terms of making the movie work the way you want it to?
That it's the biggest. Whatever the percentage is, I don't quite know. but it's the biggest, and especially on this one, I think we kind of, we set out to say, at least I set out to say, that the actors are gonna carry this movie, and because we can't rely on effects, and we can't rely on huge set pieces because we don't have them, and if we did, we probably couldn't afford to really pull them off in a way that was going to compete. So, and I was really inspired by Michael Haneke films and Martha Marcy May Marlene and these films that were able to create this really unsettling tone without shocking you, but just having characters just be completely in the moment and believe everything that they sort of tell you, and the suspension of disbelief just comes from that, and also that the whole way that it kind of gives out information only when you need it. I thought that was so fun and really confident in that film and in all of Michael's films, and so that was kind of the goal, and so early on, that was why we got a couple days of rehearsals in, and hadn't done that before. And
did you have long shooting days where you let them just go over and over? How do you normally shoot in terms of working your actors to get them? Are you focused on an intense scene and you just do that all day and you just do it until they're...
Not all day, I wish. The tough part of this was the schedule because, there's just a lot of scenes in the movie. We write a lot of short scenes. It would be easier if we had a more television sort of a schedule and we had 7 to 8 page dialogue scenes where you could sort of set a camera up. I remember the easiest day was the one with Ambyr and Wyatt at the door, the deputy, when he comes to the door, and they had the conversation at the door, because it was really just great. We're just going to get out of your way and let you guys do it, and we'll do it a couple times, and by the time you know it, you shot 5 minutes of material. Whereas the stuff that's tough is the stuff that's Michael Park's at home, because it's, you're doing, it's all visual storytelling. There's no dialogue to sort of stretch things out, and you're connecting dots. So we did 3 days of rehearsals beforehand, which was huge, because and a lot of talking about it, a lot of individually talking to each character, talking to each actor about what they're going to do, and then talking collectively, and then also being able to get to a point where you can sort of let them talk about it and them explore their own thing. There was a great moment kind of on the second or third day rehearsal where they were able to just sort of talk, and I all of a sudden realized, I'm not talking, this is great, I can kind of sit back, and Bill is starting to take on the role of dad, and as the most experienced actor, he's starting to talk about acting and also that part, and Ambyr, is, in reality, she's about 24, the older daughter, she's about 24, and, she has this Mormon background, and when Julia was sort of questioning, I don't know, why would my character do this, Ambyr was able to sit down and say, hey, it's not that odd that when you're told something all your life, you start to believe it, and when it's your parents and your father, and so it was this great moment where they were able to inhabit their own characters, and then let them go. I try to stay out of their way, and we've always storyboarded things very, not rigidly, but we always have a really clear idea how we want to shoot stuff, and part of it was being able to say to everybody, hey, if the actors don't want to do that, if it doesn't feel right for them, we're going to have to adapt to them instead of constantly asking. I think actors are always asked to adapt to whatever parameters, technical parameters there are in sets, and on this one kind of said, let's let them dictate some of this, we'll let them know where to be, but...
Do you usually do that with your actors? Let them get a little
more
bit
on the last one, because the one we did this summer, Sam Shepard and Don Johnson, and you're not going to tell Sam Shepard where it's going,
or Don.
Or Don,
yeah, they know.
Yeah, and Don knows a lot more about... That was a really cool experience because it was Don and Michael and Sam, and they have 3 wildly, completely different backgrounds, yet are so experienced and they're so entrenched in their ways. And Michael's the most flexible actor I've ever met, and you can kind of throw anything at him, and I can even come and be like, look, this line is kind of an expository line. It's kind of there to get the story across. It's kind of telegraphing a little bit of, and he'd just be kind of look up in the air and kind of say it a couple times to himself, and be like, I know, I can do that. I can make that work. You're like, what a blessing. I kept early on. I kept rewriting stuff to say, hey, now that I look at it on the page, this is really the subtext. We should work on this. And he's, no, I got it. I can sell that. So.
Yet all 3 of those actors have one thing very strongly in common. There's this, they're listening. They're listening actors.
Yes.
And that's what you seem to gravitate toward, actors that listen.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the key to acting anyway, but I think that's why you're getting such a good...
Yeah, that's true.
Good interaction, and that's...
That's
a
true.
really important part of being a director. I want to go back to the fact that you were talking about storyboarding, that's something that you've done. You continue to do your own storyboards, or you have someone else that's working with you, or how's that working?
We don't have a dedicated storyboard artist, but my cinematographer is also a really good artist, and so early on, I would say Mulberry Street, I probably storyboarded every shot in the movie, and we deviated so much because it's a low-budget movie. You'd show up, and you kind of be like, all right, this is what I had, now what can we do? We have an hour. What can we actually do? And Stakeland had a lot of, if there were certain shots or images or moments or something, I would sketch them out, and then the rest would be sort of thumbnailed. I think we are, and Cold were, instead of shot listing, Ryan would just do thumbnails the entire thing. Like, we sort of talk through stuff. We plan everything out in advance. We sit, we talk, we go through each scene. And he would thumbnail things as he went. And if there's something that's really specific, I'd go in and sort of draw it out just to sort of try to express what I was doing. But it's really cool. I just found a whole bunch of them maybe like 2 weeks ago from We Are What We Are. I hadn't thought about it. And there's a ton of like really key the shot of the mom looking out the window at the beginning where she's all symmetrical in the door frame, and like all these moments that that I had drawn out before that I totally forgot drawing that are like almost identical to what they look like, and it was pretty gratifying to think like, yes, we did have a plan.
I think some of the best directors are either started out doing storyboards or still, always did
Ridley
them.
Scott does.
Yes, he did. Hitchcock.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a ton of really great directors that, in your vision, being able to put it down and visually draw it is a big deal. How does it influence you now as a director to have done so many different jobs within the context of filmmaking?
I think it helps speed things up, I think, on set, because there's not a lot of like walking around being like, there's a problem, whose job is it to solve that problem, and we work very, I think it's a pretty democratic crew, and I hate the whole sort of unionized, everyone has their one skill and you can't venture outside of that. I sort of hate that, and so luckily we've been able to do non-union films with people that we really like, who come back, who have done it before, and they're already sort of in the rhythm, so you kind of know like if there's an issue, who to go to, instead of just going to like an art representative. You sort of know who to go to talk about that, and also get a sense of lighting and what takes time with lighting, and what's the real hold up when you're turning around lighting, and being able to find ways to cheat things. I think that's the biggest thing. Finding ways to cheat things and knowing that this is the way it's supposed to be, but that's only that way because someone said it was supposed to be. Now here's the way that we can do it that's actually going to be fast. I think that's it.
And communication, I think too, it helps with and respecting the other people that are doing their job because you've done it.
Yes, exactly. And then I think that helps on their end. It's not hopefully it's not just a show up 9 to 5 sort of thing. There's a sense that they're a part of something, which I think they are. That was the thing that always bugged me about working on things, is you don't really feel like, oftentimes you feel like you're so removed from everything, and I think in reality everyone is contributing equally to something, and people are working really hard, so I think trying to give everyone that sense that they're contributing and part of a team, part of a family, as opposed to just, a really small rung on a ladder or something, I think makes a big difference.
One last question. If this is a movie that a lot of times, unless you're a really big horror fan or you like that kind of, you've got cannibals and you've got gothic horror mixed together. What if you could get people to come in who don't necessarily see movies like this? What would you love to offer a new audience that you hadn't really presented to before this kind of a movie? What would you hope to offer them in this movie from your vision? I think the best compliment I get is when people come and say, like, I don't like horror movies, but I came and I really love this. And I think, to me, I defend horror movies all the time because I think they're one of the best places to explore really big themes, and I think it's one of the only genre, I think, where you can really get away with experimenting, and you can't do that in romantic comedies, you can't do that in a lot of films, and I think it's almost commercially, acceptable to be able to say, like, yes, we're gonna try really crazy lighting, we're gonna try really crazy music, and the audience is keen enough and sharp enough that they reward you for trying new things, which is so often not the case. So, that being said, I understand exactly why people have a really horrible
preconception about horror films because they don't really 90% of the time, 99% of the time, they don't really give them a good reason to. So I think what I would hope people take away is that horror movies can be a lot more than they are and a lot more than we imagine, and be able to say a little something. They don't all have to be preachy, but they can say something more and have a point of view, I think, is the biggest part. So many don't have a point of view, but I think when they do, they can be really interesting and really memorable.
And that, I think, is what you're offering as a director, which is really wonderful because so many more actors are being drawn to horror now because more of you guys are offering a more expansive view and more targeted in terms of quality and subject matter. And
Good.
were you influenced at all, we're kind of done, but were you influenced at all by Night of the Hunter?
Yes, totally.
Because that's my favorite movie.
Me
and
too.
I was like, oh, look, Preacher!
Yeah.
He's really a bad guy. That guy is a bad guy.
I had a, on the last one, on the one we just shot, it's very inspired by that. And
Cold or?
Cold and
Okay.
Dry.
Oh, dear.
And
I'm right there.
Above my bed in the hotel room, we put a giant Night of the Hunter poster, like right over the bed. And it was like every day you kind of come home and be like, right, that's kind of the movie we're making. I don't know if it will be or not, but...
Wow.
But yes, you tell me if it's.
I will. Like you're coming back hopefully, and
I hope. Yeah.
I'll talk more about it then. Yeah, I loved that connection because, I mean, even just the costuming.
Yeah, totally.
I felt like that was an ode.
Totally.
And all right, well, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I will.
Thank you. Good to meet you.
You too.
Yeah.
Look forward to your next movie.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.